Use that much this year?
Haven't had much need of it yet.
Looks like we got ourselves a bad man right here.
This story, this idea, this kernel, has been with you for decades. Where did it come from, and then why wait all this time?
It first started off as a normal Western, a two-hander in a town. The one character was lucky, one character was not lucky. The other character, things always ended bloody for him. That was the first movie, and it was pretty good. But the town was there, and when I ultimately couldn't make that movie, I began thinking a little bit in reverse, which is, what if we saw how the town began? Because we never see that in Westerns. And we take it for granted, and it's why we become immune to the first people that were here. We do all this because we just ignore them.
That looks like a promising place.
The place I might be able to see myself.
When you think about the character that you play or chose to play, what is it that he doesn't have?
Well, he's not in search of horizon, interestingly enough. He is living the quintessential cowboy life, which means the only possessions he has are on his back or on his horse. Now, you can look at that romantically, or you can look at like just has no possessions, a working cowboy. These other people who come from the East, they wanted something bigger and more. This town, there was a promise, there was a piece of paper. If you could get there, you could have it. If you could fight for it and hold on to it. They didn't tell you that part. But Hayes is like a Moses. He's not getting to the promised land. He's not even going there.
There's no reason for you to stay here. And here you are.
Well, I think my character has reluctantly found herself in this unforgiving landscape. But once she's there, I think she's recalibrating her life and her happiness and trying to make the best of a situation that she kind of probably didn't necessarily want to be in.
What about your character?
Pursuing the truth. What's he doing there? You know, what's going on?
My character loses an awful lot at the beginning. She needs stability and love. I think she's lonely.
It's interesting because the character's a soldier, so you could quite easily on the page take it as, well, he's an idealistic, moral, authoritarian figure. My approach was, it's much more interesting for me if the guy has no idea what he's doing and he's struggling with that and struggling with that role.
Men who hunt this land, they're not going to share it with you.
When you think about your characters in the movie, what is it the thing they're pursuing?
Freedom, independence. I mean, she was a woman who was desperate to have a life of her own, and yet she was stuck in a time period that didn't allow that for women. She wasn't allowed to be a free agent.
I think it shows character.
Jamie, what about your character? What is it that your character doesn't have?
Power. He wants to be in charge all the time. All the time. Yeah, that's it. Revenge. It motivates pretty much all of his decisions. I mean, the revenge aspect is a huge part of it. But then, you know, marry that in with this idea of power. He's constantly trying to one-up his brother. He's constantly trying to one-up himself in any social situation that he's got. And how that manifests for him is badly. Really, really badly.
I'm just saying that's something you might want to keep in mind.
What is the thing that your character doesn't have and needs?
Great question. I think Juliet and her husband Hugh are traveling west with the dream and idealistic, romantic vision of this life that they're going to build and this family that they're going to have there. And they're very naive about what their journey could entail and the dangers of traveling west. She can be very forthright. People have referred to her as a bit of a princess, but she's just protective of her husband. He's an artist on the trail. She just wants to protect her delicate flower.
You just have to stand at the river and you can see what the men and the women up there see.
Diamond is kind of dragged out there by her dad. I think he was in the, fighting in the Civil War on a specific side. And they're definitely running out there to try and find a new life and a promise of something different for him and his daughters. And Diamond starts to realize that what her dad wants to be running towards is not at all what she would like to be running towards.
All I'm trying to do is get as many of us as I can, as far as I can.
I always remember Kevin Costner saying that, America at this time was this great experiment of hope. For my character, he's married, he has 2 young daughters, and I don't think you don't leave a place where you're happy, you're doing well, so they're obviously on this trail to get to a better life, and it's that simple. Whether it's in this town that may or may not exist in Arizona, or if it's California.
Be aware of the time. Don't stop anyone asking for help.
This is the first directorial role you've taken since 2003. Yeah. What is it about this that made you want to get back in the saddle?
I've always thought other directors can do it better. That's why I haven't directed more. You do it. But when it came to this Western, I didn't want to see the things I love be arbitrated, fought over, or anything. I wanted it to be as raw as it is.
Someone's gonna take that gun and wrap you with it. What? We talked enough.
What type of homework did you give them to prepare for kind of the difficulty and challenges of
I
filming?
gave them a really good script. I gave them a script that outlined how tough it was.
Yeah.
They didn't have to go searching. They had to inhabit, and boy, did the women inhabit their characters. Boy, did Luke Wilson and people, they really took it to heart. They just ate it up. But they had a script that was premium.
When you first read the script, what was the first question you wanted to ask Kevin about your character?
The script was why. Why are you doing this? I think it's important because if Kevin does look at that script as his Bible, he does approach the work that way. He's very strict on rehearsal and stuff like that. He believes all the answers lie within that script because he spent 30 years writing it. So to him, it was the reason why he was doing it. He felt compelled to say this story and compelled about what it says about America and what it says about Americans.
What was your first question?
I can't even remember. I think I blacked out because I was so starstruck when I was speaking to Kevin Costner. I was just that just drivel. The script was really like, it was reading a novel. It was amazing, and to have scenes that were long and thoughtful, and it wasn't pursuing action per se, but it was mining sort of human behavior, and I loved that.
What was the first question you wanted to ask Kevin?
Where did she come from? Because I did a lot of work to understand what was happening in America at that time, and I felt like I wanted to really figure out where she came from, and instead of just making something up, I was like, I wonder if Kevin has something in mind. And he had, of course, written this whole story of where she came from, and that she was part of the orphan trains. I don't know if you know what that is, but it was where I think it was something like 500,000. It was a lot. It was a lot of children who were living in sort of towns like New York, where there was just a flooding of kids who had no parents because disease was crazy back then, and so people were just dropping dead, and there were orphans all over the streets. And they were sent on these trains and just sent out west. And they were often picked up by farmers, settlers, people who would use the children as labor, sometimes who just wanted children, couldn't have them of their own. Often they were abused. The children were taken and thrown into sex work and used as slaves. So that she was part of the orphan trail, and she began prostituting from a very young age.
What a great question that you asked.
Yeah.
Yes, that's amazing. What sets Kevin apart as a director?
He trusted us and told us not to doubt ourselves every step of the way. He would tell us that I might not be able to give you 100% some days, and you got to be there to support me on those days, and I will support you on the days that you can't. And really working with someone like that, you really just feel like you have space to play, you have trust and belief in yourself.
Like in a real show of strength, he relies on people, whether it's Jimmy Murrow, his cinematographer, or Scott Perez, who's in charge of the livestock, or Lisa Lovas, the great costume designer, or any of the actors. He delegates. I mean, it is like kind of a battle doing a film like this, where you have to have trust in the people you've hired, and he does that, which just makes you want to do the best possible job you can for him.
I found him incredibly meticulous with his physicality in the film. I've been saying, to me, he's kind of the Bob Fosse of westerns. Yeah. He has this amazing visionary ability to track like 50 moving storylines at the same time.
He makes every frame come alive, and it was that important to him that the entire frame be what he needed it to be, that it wasn't just what was happening in the foreground, that you could look at any corner of this movie and know that you were in this world with these characters.
We just got to keep going.
The environment on set always starts from the top, and he just is such a generous, passionate man. And so you just felt this constant buzzing on set, and it really helped to keep you there and to keep you working hard. He just has an endless surge amount of energy, which is fascinating.
All the best directors that I've had the privilege of working with bring something new out in you, right? And that comes through trust a lot of the time. And so for him to trust us enough to be able to be ourselves, and for us to look at him, and for him to pull something new out of us, it's just beautiful. So he was just generous with his love.
Was he exactly as you envisioned him?
Yeah, I grew up watching Kevin's movies, so to be stood opposite him, watching him do his thing, felt like I was in one of his movies. I am, you know. It's like, it's wild. You're watching him and you're like, oh my god, this is so sick. And then you're like, wait, I'm meant to be speaking right now. Hold on, figure yourself out. I loved it. He's a gentleman. He really is a gentleman.
I think being an actor, he understands what it's like and what we need in a way that some directors just don't. He's very sensitive to performance. He's very prepared. This is his passion project, so you feel all of that passion and it's very inspiring. He's a very special man.
So you want to work with a kind of a leader who can inspire you and give you different ideas and spark different kind of creative kind of directions for you. And Kevin has worked with a bunch of famous directors and has worked with many, many legends in American cinema and world cinema. And so you know you're getting a wealth of knowledge that you can't compare to most people. So you just kind of, you sit and listen to that kind of director. They're giving you so much.
I'm going to ask you, what is the IMDb credit that changed your life?
The Big Chill. It didn't change my life as a result of the movie. It changed my life the moment I had the part and I was driving home on the freeway going, I'm with a great director, I'm with the right people. That's when I knew that things were going the right way. Some people go, well, you didn't even turn up in the movie, you know? But you want to ask me, I can tell you when. It's when they said you have the part, and I was driving home and I said, I've landed. It's like my boat just ran up onto a little gravel shore and I'd made it across this rough water of, am I going to get there? I was suddenly around the right people that I would learn from and I would catapult myself forward.
You all have appeared in credits that have become fan favorites over the years with IMDbers. So I had a chance to ask him what was the IMDb credit that changed his life.
Was that The Big Chill for him?
It was The Big Chill.
Yeah.
Good. Wow. So I want you to think about, what is the IMDb credit that changed your life? What is the credit that helped unlock other opportunities for you or changed your perception or trajectory of your career?
Funnily enough, for me, it was this indie zombie musical I did called Anna and the Apocalypse, which on the face of it just really should have been a dud. Like, a lot of people said when I got the job, they were like, Ella, you don't have to do this. But I had a great time doing it and I met wonderful people, and then the film did very well at Fright Fest and got picked up by an American distributor out here. And from that, Michael Sugar, one of the producers of Dickinson, saw that movie and asked me to be in Dickinson. And Kevin watched Dickinson, and that's how I got this. And it's just kind of all come from that funny little movie for me.
I'm a first aider. I'm just going to turn you over.
I think at the beginning of my career when I did Orphan, I mean, that was, for me at that point, acting was like just getting to play pretend, which was my favorite and still is my favorite thing to do. And I remember working on that film with Vera Farmiga and Peter Sarsgaard, and Leonardo DiCaprio produced the film and was the one who cast me in the movie, and he was the one who was like, you know, you could actually have a career at this. I'm like, this is a job? People do this? And so to look back on that, and you know, recently I did this film called The Novice. I feel like those two movies have kind of been these big different turning points in my career, and Kevin saw The Novice before he cast me in this, he had mentioned, and that, you know, is a performance I'm incredibly proud of as an adult. And I think, you know, careers go up and down, but it's really cool that a movie, you know, a small independent film like that and a movie like Orphan have these like cult followings, and I'm just very grateful to have been trusted with those characters.
You know how hard it is for me to be the best, how hard I have to push myself to be the best.
For me, definitely the first movie I made with my brothers and Wes Anderson, this movie Bottle Rocket that James L. Brooks produced. That was just our first movie out of the gate, and that was from a short film, but still, we still talk about how did they make it? How did they let us make it?
Pretty fast. Real fast, man, and good intensity.
High intensity.
Great intensity.
And they didn't want to make it. James L. Brooks, you know, forced Columbia to make the movie because he has this Gracie Films, and they had Jerry Maguire was being produced there, and he was getting ready to do As Good as It Gets. But I think the movie Kevin saw that made him think that I could, you know, do a good job in this was this movie Middlemen, which is kind of different, kind of like a crime movie.
So what kind of business is it?
I have a team full of Legally Blonde diehards, and they sent me with a mission to ask you a question. about, now that the prequel has been announced, are you going to have a cameo in the show?
I just heard about the prequel last week.
Do you see the excitement on our
I
faces?
do. I don't know anything about it really besides Reese is producing it, but I'm sure it'll be great. I mean, I do think what really concerns me is this young upstart Barbie. You know, we've really got to deal with this person before. No, I don't. I think that I love the idea of what do they call those, origin stories? Yeah.
What is the line that people quote most often to you in real life?
I'm married under the green monster. That was from Legally Blonde.
I'm getting married under the green monster!
I mean, it's such a clear one for me. It's Mad Max, because I'd never done a film before. I wasn't trying to act. I got asked to do a self-tape for George Miller as a model, and I'd never considered acting. I didn't know what a self-tape was. I'm like Googling, how do I do a self-tape? It spun my life on its head completely. Suddenly I was in Africa for 7 months, shooting Mad Max, which is massive and epic, and falling absolutely in love with the craft of acting.
Say, anyone notice that bright light? Encroaching gunfire?
I'm like in the back of a car with Charlize Theron, Tom Hardy. It's like not bad, you know?
What about you?
Probably Sweeney Todd. It was my first ever film. What an amazing cast, director, team to work with. That or like Thomas the Tank Engine, Legend of Sodor, or whatever it's called.
What is that?
Yeah, you'll have to watch that one. That's a good one.
Tell us about this credit.
This one, that was a joke, but actually there is a cool story behind this one. So they were making the film, and Eddie Redmayne's in the film, Olivia Colman's in the film, John Hurt's in the film, and they were like looking for this like young boat character called Skiff, and they called me up and I was playing music at the time. I was like, yeah, I'll do it. This sounds amazing. And then I got to do the TV show for like a couple of episodes as well. But I was kidding there, but actually it also meant a lot to me in my heart as well. Like my baby cousin, you know, she loved that show growing up, and you try explaining to a 3-year-old that her relative is in the show that she's watching, it's mind blown. Yeah.
Bye, Thomas! Bye!
We have a really amazing all-star cast here full of IMDb fan favorites. I want to ask the two of you, when you look back at your own IMDb credits, which is the credit that changed your life?
Oh my gosh, I think I'm still waiting for it. Factory Girl maybe was the first time I felt like I'd really connected to something. It was well received. It kind of hit a zeitgeist at the time. I mean, it didn't do huge money, but it was the first really intense role that I got to play, and I think it changed perception about my ability.
It's something.
People thought that I was someone who had nice clothes and was a girlfriend, and then maybe like, oh, maybe she can act, in layman's terms. I hope, for the 7 people that saw it.
You just have to look beyond the obvious, you know?
Me, Avatar, pretty simple.
Yeah.
Yeah, it changed everything.
Absolute Goliath.
Changed my whole, changed
yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Even when it released, Jim told us to disappear, so we all went and disappeared for a bit, and then it was only when we kind of came back up for air about 5-6 weeks later, and it was still being well received by audiences. That's kind of when you kind of went, whoa, this is great. When you make a movie, you're hoping it attaches itself to an audience. You're hoping it has an impact, and if it does, then you get box office.
Yeah.
But you can't. You got to go into that thing with this passion of, this is a story that I hope can change at least one life. That's what Kevin's trying to do with Horizon. You got to kind of make a movie from your heart and your soul, and then you just hope it touches at least one person. If it touches 7, or it touches as many as Avatar tends to do, that's fantastic.